So now I'd like to introduce our country coordinators who will be sharing their insights today in the first part of the session. So let's spotlight everybody. Please give us 1 second. We have a lot of amazing team with us, so it's going to take a while to spotlight everybody. I cannot find aim. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so if Elia would like to start your introduction, please do so.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Elia. I'm based in Pakistan. Currently, I am the Pakistan coordinator for Animal Alliance Asia. Han, would you like to introduce yourself first? Next, thank you.
Everyone, thank you for joining today's cross-cultural discussion. I'm Han, I'm the country coordinator for Vietnam. I'll pass it on to Sneha.
Hi everyone, I'm Sneha. I'm the country coordinator for India. I'll pass it on to Aim.
Hi everyone, I'm the former Thailand coordinator. Right now I am assistant program coordinator. And I'd like to pass it on to Poppy.
Thank you, Aim. Hi everyone, I'm Poppy, I'm Indonesian country coordinator. And yeah, I'll pass on Yuki.
Hey everyone, my name is Yuki. I'm the country coordinator for Japan. All right, Suraja, next.
Thank you, Yuki. Hi everyone. My name is Surajan Shrestha and I'm a country coordinator of Animal Alliance Asia for Nepal. Would you like to go next, Roxy?
Thank you, Surajan. Hi, everyone. I'm Roxy. I'm the Taiwanese coordinator, and it's really happy to see you all here. Next, we've got Steph.
Thank you, Roxy. So happy to see everybody here at the AACA 2023 Day 2. My name is Steph, all the way from the Philippines. I'm the Philippine coordinator of AAA. Back to you, Kyle.
Thank you everyone so much. Yeah, so we'll move into the discussion. So the first question I have for you is reflecting back on this year. So you've done all the amazing work this year, and you're in different countries in each respective country. So in your country, what progress for animals have you seen in the past year? Does anyone would like to start? Suraja, go ahead.
Thank you for the question. Well, while you're talking about the progress, both positive and negative changes could be seen if we reflect back to 2023. Well, let's not go on the negative side for now, but on the positive one, various individual animal advocates and organizations did come together to prepare the draft of the first Animal Welfare Act for Nepal, and now it has already been submitted to various concerned departments and ministries under the government of Nepal. And most important thing is that this draft includes various elements that could be a great tool to advocate not only for the betterment of companion or wild or working animals, but also for those animals who are being exploited in the agriculture industry. Well, hopefully we could see some positive response from the Ministry of Livestock Development soon regarding this draft. Well, people talking about veganism has also been increased significantly. As per my knowledge, the word vegan wasn't really in use a decade ago in Nepal, but now medias are publishing news and articles about veganism, so that's really a good part. And recently, one of the popular social media pages posted about World Vegan Day, and to our amusement, there were more than 1,000 comments from Nepali people discussing about it. There were some people trolling about it, which generally happens, but people were also mentioning their friends or family members maybe. So this means that veganism has been a part of the discussion at some point. And the number of vegan restaurants has also increased here in Nepal. People are really trying to offer an alternative to meat through the chains in the food system. And even yesterday, just right after the end of AACA, I got a call from the spokesperson of Elephant Festival Organizer Committee telling that they are planning to end the last elephant polo and elephant calf football in Nepal from this year. And well, personally, this is a very great news for me because I started this campaign myself in 2013, and finally, after these many years of continuous struggle, I feel like we are reaching to where we wanted to be on this particular issue. But at the same time, we are eagerly waiting for their official statement for this news to celebrate fully. There are lots of negative happenings in our surrounding, but these progresses gives us the hope to keep working for the betterment of animals. I think I properly answered your question, Kaho. Thank you. Back to you.
Yeah, that is amazing. It sounds like there were lots of progress in Nepal, and congrats on getting that campaign successful as well. And it really shows that change really takes a long time, and the patience is like, and yeah, persistence is a key, really. So thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else like to share the progress in your country? Alia?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kaz. Thank you, Surajan, for sharing that. I reflect and echo completely like how progress can take time. There has been some great work on ground taking place for animal welfare, but this has all happened in the late 2022 and 2023, but not so much for farmed animal welfare or farmed animal rights. We saw terrible flooding last year that resulted in monumental loss of life and food. And adding to that, there were a lot of political issues in the country that has left little room for any discussion for animal rights in the room. But yet I observed people trying their best for animals. One great thing that stood out this year was that there is a creation of an organization called PARC, a Police Animal Rescue Center, where an organization, JFK, have partnered with the police to set up a center where animal abuse can be reported directly. And a first information report can also be filed. Before this, there were no formal SOPs in place to complain or file reports, even though we had policies and laws in place for reporting a crime against animals. So this gives us hope that there will be some change going forward. And I have seen them also work towards transportation of certain farmed animals as well. So then again, we're hopeful. We have two other organizations in the last year that extended their welfare to farmed animals. Before that, they were not focused on farmed animals particularly. The progress is slow, and it has been difficult. But also on the other side, we also see a lot of new meat farms that are popping up, being set up. Rabbit meat has started to sell in stores along with veal meat, camel meat, whale meat. These meats were consumed before as well, but now we see them formally entering the markets. And there will be many issues arising from this. These animals are not exactly categorized as livestock, and we have no idea how they are farmed or they are like, what are they being administered. So yes, there is good and bad happening. Thank you. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It sounds like there are some small yet important changes, but also there are negatives happening as well in Pakistan. Yeah, thank you so much. Anyone else would like to share? Please put up the digital hand. Roxy?
Yeah, thank you, Kaho. So in Taiwan, actually, the Animal Protection Act has been enacted since 1998. But the rate of actual enforcement has been really, really low because of the government officials that have to write a really big report every time they get complaints from the citizens who are being fined. So they actually avoid actually enforcing the law. But this year, as far as I know, there have been 2 cases of humans intentionally poisoning dogs in which the perpetrators have been convicted, fined, and jail time. And that might sound like a natural outcome to all of us, but it is actually a really big step to see the government actually taking a action and taking animal abuse seriously. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roxy. Yeah, having the law is one thing, but also enforcement is another. And it's good to see that things are being implemented as they should be. So thank you. Anyone else? I think I saw Steph's hand earlier. Would you like to go next?
Thank you, Kaho. And I'm really happy to hear good news from different countries around Asia. In the Philippines, the Department of Trade and Industry has started a plant-based roadmap. And while it's mostly to invite the development of alternatives to meat instead of, for animal justice and crop farmer support, it's a beginning, it's a start. And animal groups continue to communicate with the government to further improve this roadmap. It's obvious, however, that this roadmap has yet to be shared with other government departments. Because, for instance, the Department of Agriculture here in our Philippines is promoting rabbit meat as a new food source. So there's conflicting actions between the different departments. The good news, however, is that there has been pushback against the government's plan to develop rabbit meat as a solution to food accessibility problems. So aside from the plant-based roadmap, people are now taking action to prevent rabbit meat from becoming one of the main meat sources in the Philippines. So people don't want to add more animals to their plate. And I'm thinking that this might be the start of some introspection regarding why there are animals on our plates to begin with. And because of the economic difficulties we've been experiencing, more people are aware of how expensive and inaccessible food is. And there are now conversations about how expensive animal flesh is. And this has led others to suggest more plant-based sources because they're relatively cheaper, even though the prices are, they continue to rise for every other food source. And people are now thinking, maybe we should have community gardens. Maybe we should have our own small gardens at home, which is all very plant-based. It promotes community development, and it steers people away from looking at animals as a food source. So there are more initiatives like that in the Philippines, and overall, I see a lot of hope. More people are joining vegan communities online as well, and I'm really hopeful about what will happen in the years to come. Back to you, Kaho.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm always very intrigued to hear what's going on in the Philippines. So yeah, that was really good information. Thank you so much, Steph. Anyone else like to share? Aim?
Yeah, thank you. So as for Thailand, we have similar law enforcement issue like what happening in Taiwan, as Roxy said as well. But politically, in the past national election in 2023, we had not one but two occasions where like representatives from political parties are invited to talk about their policy regarding animals in all kinds of animals, which is something groundbreaking because it never happened before. But this election we had two. So they are discussing policy from their parties regarding animals, although most of them are still from the point of view of how can humans still further exploit animals in a more effective way, or like in a way that's safer for humans. But still, at least I see very encouraging efforts from animal advocates who gather and try to organize this kind of event to happen and make the conversation around animal welfare, animal rights become like center of the attention and bridge the gap between animal advocacy and politics, because we need that association if we would like to like drive the change more in a structural level, right? And in terms of plant-based diet, I see lots of growth, both in the markets, in events, and public interest. I see many plant-based events, but from what I know, they are mostly in Bangkok still, or big cities where they are very like touristy. So it's still, we can still, for sure, there's still a big room for improvement. But given like the change for the past few years, I think there's like much more interest in plant-based diet. And I also see lots of conversation on social media. More and more people discuss about animal justice issues, which is a big improvement. If you ask me as a Thai person and as an animal advocate who's on social media, within 1 year time, the public opinion has changed a lot, although there's still really various opinions, but still seeing that animal issues become consideration, like become a topic of conversation, is something like a very big improvement, which is very encouraging. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy. Yeah, and thank you for speaking about pointing out to, I think the political context is very important, like factor to consider in animal advocacy as well. We have a session today later on, and we invited one of the activists from Thailand, Piengfa, and she will be talking about legal obstacles in doing animal advocacy in Thailand. So if anyone's interested, please join that session as well. Yeah, anyone else would like to share to respond to this question? Han, go ahead.
Yes, so this year is my first full year working with AAA, and also I've seen a few very promising events happening in the animal advocacy space in Vietnam. So first, this year marked the first Vietnam Farm Animal Coalition Conference, which was a huge step in uniting people from all different approaches in the animal advocacy space, in order to attempt to create something that we can call an animal justice movement here. So almost all of us who work in the animal advocacy space had a hand in putting on this event. And for 2 days, we were given like a very comprehensive overview of where Vietnam is in terms of protection for farmed animals. And it was also particularly helpful, especially for organizations working on welfare measures and working on changes within the system to engage in a conversation with industry people. Secondly, we had the Southeast Asia Farm Animal Welfare Fellowship, which was initiated by Welfare Matters in Singapore. The program this year was specific to Vietnam and taught in Vietnamese, and it drew a lot of interest from aspiring advocates looking for a career transition into the animal advocacy space, students in veterinary medicine, and also producers in the industry. And actually, all the fellows made it to Asia Farm Animal Day just last month in Malaysia, and creating a huge presence for Vietnam in the regional movement. And I was really proud to see, all, when they called out Vietnam and all the people made a lot of noise. It was the first time I saw so much like Vietnamese presence in this space. Also this year, Animal Alliance Asia's own Animal Advocacy Academy was taught in Vietnamese for the first time, and I had the pleasure of running the program. And I could tell that the huge increase in accessibility just by teaching the program in our local language really made it possible for a lot more people to enter into this space. Then next, we have the vegan advocacy organization Vive, which invested in producing a documentary focusing on a chicken farm this year. And the documentary ended up being shown at Asia Farm Animal Day as well in Malaysia, which showed for many people that in contrast to their perception, Vietnam has mostly, if not fully, industrialized animal agricultural operations. And that the things people see in footage of farms and slaughterhouses is not far from the reality we have at home. And finally, there have also been attempts to bring V-label to Vietnam, which for the first time will raise the issue of, for consumers, of knowing if a product is guaranteed to be vegetarian or vegan. And that is in keeping with like a lot of the outreach that we've seen recently to increase consumer awareness, along with the increase in visibility of veganism in general, or at least like alternatives to products that come from animals. Like we keep seeing huge increases in vegan businesses and people transitioning to like vegan food products or other products. So it's really promising to see.
Yeah, thank you so much, Han. There are some comments in the chat. I think Anam was asking for a link to that documentary if you have it. And Mudra, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it possible for people from other countries to attend these conferences, events? I think you're referring to Asia Animals and Vegan Advocacy Conference, and I think the Welfare Matters, maybe Southeast Farm Animal Welfare Fellowship. Some of them you have to go to their website to find out who will be eligible to attend those events. But if we could maybe share their links, we'll do so after. And yeah, if you maybe haven't read our report from last year, we have a report to show the progress of the movement in each country, and Vietnam and Pakistan were like, you know, very like initial stage of the movement last year. But just within the last 1 year, it sounds like both in Vietnam and Pakistan, there were some small yet important changes and more people in the movement based on Alia and Han shared with us. So that is a really great changes that we are seeing right now. So thank you so much. So yeah, next, let's move on to the next question. So based on your discussions with local advocates and maybe your observations too in the movement, what are some of the approaches that seem to be working in your country and mobilizing more people into the movement and raising awareness to animal justice issues? Who would like to go to tackle this question first? Sneha, go ahead.
Thank you, Kaho. Hi, everyone. It's so good to see you all here, and it has been really inspiring to hear the advancement and improvements that has been happening in the country all over Asia as well. So when it comes to India, there has been significant growth, throughout the last decade. And when it comes to just like observing what's happening within the movement and on the grassroots level, I think animal rights have basically gained momentum over the last couple of decades in India. So this means that a lot of people from almost all age groups are involved in some form of advocacy, either for community animals or wildlife conservation, farm animals as well, and animals used for entertainment. So there has been some form of conversation going on since the time that I have been in the movement. And for the mainstream vegan movement, what has really worked on the ground is that the public awareness programs that has been running and the events that has been running, they have been proven effective for a really long time. And activists who do involve in various activities like outreaches, peaceful protests, marches, and demonstrations, they have gained popularity, and they have also got attention of the few mainstream media houses and newspapers. But during when the pandemic hit us all, we all know that a lot of our activism suffered, and This was the time when the mainstream activists who were going on the ground, who were organizing these events, they turned to online platforms, primarily Instagram and YouTube, as seen in also other social justice movements. This shift significantly really impacted the reach of these advocates and provided a platform for activists, also with disabilities and also from marginalized communities, because they didn't really find that space within the mainstream movement. So when pandemic did happen, it sort of worked out for some of us as activists, because we could have our online platform where we could talk about the issues from our perspective, our experiences as well. And currently, the animal rights organizations that are here running in India, who are also working on various issues for animal rights and animal welfare. Right now, the whole phase is going on that there's a lot of collaboration that is happening. There's a lot of collaborative efforts that are taking place, initiatives that are taking place on the ground between organizations and the independent activist groups that are running on the ground, that are doing the groundwork, who are out there talking to people, doing these activities, taking permissions from authorities. So these independent groups are also supported by organizations and in various cities in India. So individual activists really work on creative ways of creating recipe videos or awareness videos. So they engage in conversations with the masses outside malls, outside theaters, outside events. They undertake a lot of activities, even from perspective of attending the live vigil and also showcasing and exposing the plight of farmed animals as well. So ideally, when we do talk about advocacy, within the mainstream movement, what we do lack is what I have observed is the collective justice advocacy that we definitely do not really rely upon, or really hop onto that and do our advocacy. So the mainstream movement often excludes those who discuss connecting animal rights with human rights. This is this is something that we want to change. This is something that we are really working towards. Our focus should be more on the strategies that promote collective liberation and work in tandem with human rights movement. This does not automatically diminishes the efforts of activists that are actually advocating on the ground. All it is doing is inviting people from various backgrounds. It's being open to other communities as well, who can really be a part of this movement in some way or the other. So that's sort of an emphasis that I want to make when it comes to observing what's happening on the ground, is that we really need to broaden and reevaluate our approach when we unintentionally, or in some cases intentionally, exclude entire groups of communities and people due to a fixed narrative that we have built within India, that is mainstream Savarna veganism. So for some of you who might not know what Savarna means, it basically means when you're from upper caste, upper class person who are in the movement, and that's the specific sort of category that has been, by default dominating the movement. So a lot of times, conversations like these, conversations with other activists who are maybe queer, who are maybe Dalit Muslims, they get completely excluded from these main conversations that are happening within the movement, within organizations, sort of almost everywhere. So these independent activist groups, are sort of the real deal when it comes to talking about various issues that interconnect with them, because these are the guys who are going out and talking to people and educating them. So there are few organizations who have started talking about, who have started working on intersectional approach, which is a really a great step. And also uh, some independent activist groups who have been, ensuring that their advocacy doesn't exclude anybody. So one such group is Inter Animal Liberation. I'll talk about them a little bit later. Apart from that, what I have definitely observed is that there's a struggle in, procuring funds for animal rights advocacy. So it can be really difficult sometimes to do what they want to do on the ground, to run the campaigns, to execute and elaborate further ideas, because of this issue. There could be, very mundane activities that have been going on. So sometimes it takes time to get into the zone of really getting into funding, because a lot of us are not experts in fundraising, and we really sometimes look for organizations who can support us and help us. And I think this is where Animal Alliance Asia's Reroute program fund really helped. A lot of other organizations also provide micro grants, to activists like the Pollination Project and AA as well, who have helped these activists to focus on advocating for animal rights, animal justice, and so that they don't have to worry so much about the funding. And that's sort of a way that has been built to uplift one another, so that they also do the on-ground work and they also get funding, and that helps everybody, the organizations, the activists, and the masses. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the observations that I have sort of made and the conversations that I have had with all the activists in my country. So yeah, I hope it answers the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your such a thorough response to that question. There was a question in the chat. Sneha, if you like to respond to that. Thank you. And yeah, does anyone else want to respond to this question? Poppy.
Thank you, Kaho. Yeah, I think for Indonesia, I want to start with it's almost the end of the year, so it's kind of reflection time. So I think it's a good time to reflect back on what we have done, how we mobilize people around Indonesia. Before getting into that, we need to realize that Indonesia is like archipelago, so it's tough to mobilize people. Mostly effectively will be done online, most of the case. But I think we have a lot of vegan festival, which like mobilizing people more in a fun way. It seems like really friendly for everyone to join the space to just discuss. And what I see some improvement is like there are a lot of discussion, including ethics, including animal rights, rather than just including food or plant-based or just like plant-based nutrition. It's more go on with, kind of reflection on are we ready to talk about this issue further? Are we ready to talk about rather than food? How does it go? And I think it goes pretty well this year. It's a huge improvement for myself, because I think last time we couldn't have, or we are just limited to discuss about animals, just this issue in a vegan festival sort of things. And yeah, I think it's also a lot of internal training program for volunteer in local organization, as well as more international. I think like Animal Don't Speak Human also doing their internal volunteer program, which is like really cool, because when we think about a volunteer, they want to feel empowered, and I think internal program like that will be a consistently improvement that should be always happening, because like our knowledge are limited everything is changing over the time. So I think there's always time to learn something new. I think that's why AACA comes to this space, so we always can talk it through without feeling like alone in this space. So it is a really good thing. And then I also see a lot of collaboration between a vegan business and independent activists, where they're trying to influence how to implement more on plant-based option into the society, into the community. And I think volunteer engagement maybe improve so well, including like people are trying to thinking what initiative they can launch, but oftentimes they're so afraid that the project got rejected of, or just like, am I have like enough credibility to launch the project in I think we all have kind of discussed imposter syndrome in our community. I think we all kind of relate to that. And then we want to see how leaders in organization like international organization want to take a step back to give some space to individual or independent activists that still has their own job, their own work to do an activism in our space. I think it's lovely to see this collaboration, and I wish to see it more in the future, also with another movement, so we can go along together with this movement together. That's from Indonesia. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. It sounds like there's a lot of collaborations happening between individuals and businesses and the community as well. So kind of bridging the gap is kind of the approach that maybe it's working to bring in more people into the movement. Yeah, thank you so much. Anyone else would like to share? Yuki?
Oh, okay. I'll go before Roxy then. All right. Yeah, in Japan, I noticed that more and more advocates are taking the approach of voicing opinions or making requests to businesses as consumers as part of their activism. For example, like asking restaurants to include more vegan options in their menu, or asking supermarkets to stock like cage-free or free-range eggs or milk. And it seems like these consumer voices are actually making impacts because there are more and more animal-friendly options at eateries and cafes and stores and such. And this kind of action, like sending opinions to businesses, is something that any advocate can do without any like intimidation factors. Like, so it seems like a very accessible form of activism, as opposed to, for example, street outreach. Like people might, it can take some guts to be on the streets. So yeah, so especially at supermarkets, written requests on the consumer voice forms in Japan, they usually get posted publicly, and you get replies from the business owners right on the bulletin board. So many customers seem to read them too, and it seems like a very good way to raise awareness that way. And also many of these opinions and requests seem to get implemented very quickly, like within weeks or days sometimes. So it's quite rewarding for anyone who makes these requests, and because the turnaround for the results is very quick. And also, when I've written these consumer voices and they get posted at supermarkets, I've noticed that other customers also starting to write requests of like vegan products and such. So it also seems like one way to mobilize ordinary citizens to voice their opinions too. So that's what that's what I'm thinking for Japan.
Yeah, thank you so much. I like that I think you said accessible form of activism. I think it's really, it doesn't require much efforts or I guess like courage to do, like send the opinion form. So yeah, I think that sounds like very exciting, that also to hear it's working as well. The voices are heard by these companies.
Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah, so another maybe 2 more people if they want to share their responses to these questions. Roxy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kaho. Yeah, so in Taiwan, art is definitely one of the most popular ways of raising awareness. Not just in animal advocacy, it's also in any social movements, really. And for instance, we've had an animal rights short film screening event this year, and it attracted many people outside of the current animal justice community, and some really impressive advocates who have been dedicated in using picture books, comics, animations, or photography to mobilize people, and have been getting really good feedbacks as well. Like Herbie Bobo that was one of the speakers yesterday. They're one of them. And another really popular way to mobilize people is like what Poppy just mentioned, is vegan markets. Like people really enjoy spending the weekend, outdoor events, and with food. And most of the time they attract many non-vegan folks, and parents bring their children as well. So I think it's also serving like a type of educational purpose rather than just having food. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roxy. I know we are kind of running out of time for this session, so I'm gonna just go quickly. Elia, I saw your hand up. Would you like to share your thoughts as well?
Thank you. So for Pakistan, I don't think that there can be one approach to raise awareness. We lack activists that are vegan or animal rights oriented. So we need awareness for the people to get active, and we need awareness for the people to go vegan, or if nothing, reduce their meat consumption. I would also like to emphasize that Pakistan is an ethically diverse country. There are parts of the country that will never listen to or accept a woman advocating, and there are parts of the country that will never listen to certain ethnicities, as racism is very rampant. To raise awareness, we have to focus on maybe urban centers, as they are most inspired from the Western fashion and food trends. There are also for some groups, anti-speciesism education might work. For some groups, Islamic perspective, health, or the environment approach might work. But for others, this will vary, as this will be depending on the community that we engage with. Policy change will be crucial in the coming years, as we will need to have certain regulations in place as well. I personally have had the opportunity to engage with many people on ground in person from different regions across Pakistan, and that has clarified many region-specific strategies for me. It would also be a good time to talk about what will not work. One strategy for all will not work. One approach, which is disconnected from on-ground realities, will not work, and a top-down approach will not be welcomed. The good thing and the bad thing about Pakistan is that there is hardly any work being done for vegan and animal justice advocacy. There are many welfare organizations, but hardly any focusing on animal justice and veganism particularly. This gives us an opportunity to explore, and this might be a good time to also shift focus towards Pakistan. We have a population of 231 million people. We are estimated to grow our meat industry at an annual 8.89%. I feel like many international organizations, vegan, welfare, animal justice organizations are waiting for the meat industry to grow, and then they might intervene when the problem is big enough. But I truly think that the time is now. I have been voicing this concern for many years, that the time to save animals in Pakistan is now, not later. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like you are at the very critical point of like intervention. So yeah, I'm sure your work is very important, what you're doing in Pakistan, Elia. So thank you so much. Maybe one more person very briefly, if you want to share what seems to be working in your country. Okay, Srajan, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll just try to keep it short. I think Sneha has already mentioned many of the things that most of it can resonate with. And well, in terms of raising awareness among people, social media, of course, plays a vital role. But since TikTok is banned in Nepal, there's still format like Shorts in YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, which has beautiful algorithm to reach among wide range of audience. And I believe that individual animal advocates and animal welfare rights organizations here in Nepal are using these tools in order to convey their message and raise awareness among people. Well, as mentioned in my answer to previous question, the number of vegan restaurants are also growing in Nepal, and these restaurants are the part of soft approach on a consumer level to raise awareness among people about the rights of animals, and also creating a change in the food system Vegan restaurant has really been a great place, a great platform to initiate conversation, have a discussion, raise awareness, and build a community of like-minded people here in Nepal. But there are still lots of possible effective ways or methods to raise awareness, like putting giant billboards, taking direct action, and influence people through it, etc., which are not being implemented. But I think we still lack that number of advocates who could take lead on these approaches and make the impact in the future days to come. Thank you. Back to you, Kahal.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so let's move on to the next question, if that's okay with you. So what are so I know that there are lots of like initiatives and projects that are going on in your country. So among those projects, that initiatives that you see in your country, what do you find most exciting? And what are you hopeful for? Okay, so Steph, I see your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Kaho. Before I answer the question, we're talking about hope. And I keep thinking, when we look out the window and we think about what's happening in the world, hope is one of the things that we easily lose, and understandably so. So I think that this question is very important, not just for us coordinators to answer today, but I think for everybody in this space to think about way after this conference is over, so that we don't lose hope. Because if we do, if we lose hope in others, if we lose hope in humanity, then we develop this misanthropic view. And if so, we lose the power to want to change with them, because that's what we want, right? We want to change with them, and we want a better world for them. So thank you so much for asking this question. So going to the question, I'm thinking about one thing, not a project, not an initiative, but a change that brings me hope for the Philippines. And that's this growing acceptance of a consistent anti-oppression approach when it comes to animal justice. It's being slowly but surely, throughout different groups. And so aside from reminding us that being animal justice advocates is not where we stop at when it comes to improving how we interact with the world, I think consistent anti-oppression as a shared value among more and more Filipino animal justice advocates is a step in the right direction, strategy-wise, in two ways. So the first is that it can help address animal injustice from different angles. So we are thinking of highlighting seemingly non-animal related obstacles to animal justice, such as food injustice, unfair wages, lack of subsidies for crop farmers, lack of transport networks, and so on. So that's one way this consistent anti-oppression approach is helping us in the animal justice movement. So the second is that this actually opens the door to other social justice movements so that they can join us, so that they can learn about what animals are going through, and hopefully they can internalize animal justice the same way they've learned to value human justice. After all, if other movements know that we genuinely care about what's happening to humans, about what's happening to the world, maybe that's a great invitation for them to listen when we try to amplify the voices of animals. So in other words, this better acceptance of consistent anti-oppression here in the Philippines gives us more opportunities to actually talk about what's happening to animals. And on a more hopeful note, I think it's when I see others being reminded of the value of interconnectedness that I feel the most hope. Because come to think of it, and this is true not only of animal justice, but of all other issues, I think we have better odds of overcoming challenges if we're not alone. So yes, that's it from the Philippines. Thank you, Kaho.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steph, for sharing that. If we've actually had the Changing the Narrative workshop this year in the Philippines, and the Steph organized a workshop to talk about the intersection between disability justice, body liberation, and animal justice. So the recording is available on our YouTube. I just pasted the link in the chat if anyone is interested. Steph also worked really hard on the translation captions, so please go ahead and watch it if you are interested. There are some interesting discussions happening in the chat. Please, if you like to engage in that discussion, please do so. That sounds like a very big topic, so I'm not going to go into it now, but I would like to get back to it in the future for sure. Anyone else would like to respond to this question? The question, I mean the question that I asked, sorry. What are the projects and initiatives that you're excited for? Not the questions in the chat for now. Yuki, go ahead.
All right, if no one else, I can go. Yeah, in Japan, kind of similar to what Steph was talking about in the Philippines, I'm excited to see more intersectional approaches and initiatives in conjunction with other social movements like human rights, environmental efforts. Like we also had Changing the Narrative in Japan, and also Animal Advocacy Academy workshops this past year. I saw that many animal advocates in Japan seem to resonate with the importance of anti-oppression in animal advocacy space. In Japan, there's discrimination based on sex and age is quite ingrained in the culture. So I find this trend very promising. And for example, there's the Vegan Kids Project exposing youth to intersectional concepts at early ages. And also there's been new cross-movement discussion series on YouTube focusing on like sexual harassment issues and animal rights. Also, some of the biggest vegan influencers in Japan are increasingly more vocal about other social issues. And that helps to widen our circle of allies, I think. I'm hopeful that these efforts will shift the animal advocacy movement in Japan from being what's currently just a rather obscure, marginalized minority effort to something being recognized as a respectable social movement. So that's my hope.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there are lots of exciting projects happening in Japan, so I'm also hopeful for that as well. Yeah, anyone else would like to respond to this question? What are the exciting project initiatives? Anyone else? Poppy?
Yeah, I feel like when it's come to approach initiative or project, I find it like we are in the stage like we are building something that people feel unknown of. They might know vegan as you are consuming plant-based food, kind of sort of that thing, but they don't know like what are people doing, we are trying to working on it. And I think we are trying to make it known and make it like connected to each other, to people, like for example the closest one that might be kind of misleading in a way, like for example like permaculture, organic movement. People tend to think when it's organic it could be vegan, but is it like a back and forth thing? That confusion around that, it's so rooted, and I think we need to always target through, because like people are confusing us with being organic, being healthy, being kind of in those states. And yeah, I think some people are also went to slaughterhouse to expose our imported live export. I think a live export to expose the industry from Australia to Indonesia. I think it's more it's quite big, because like it involves international involvement in our import export kind of in the with the animals, especially cow here. And also with the project, also project in, building some, game, kids friendly to engage with kids, to educate them with games is also one really good thing that we have to keep improve. So when we use the game, we can engage the students without, they having hesitated to think that we are trying to veganize them really hard. But in case we're trying to more like subtle way, smooth way to engage with them. I think art is also one thing that we have to involve more in here, because like art is one thing that people can enjoy, but didn't know that we are trying to deliver a message, a broader message, rather than just, applying footage involving kids to watch footage. And also here, when we are doing street outreach, people are kind of approaching, and the kids will say like, yeah, it is what it is what happened to the animals. So like people, kids are like normalized to watch this thing. And I think it's a way to use another tactics to influence them or make them think in different way. Also find like a research about like why animal abusement happened to the animals by human. I think it's really interesting to feel from the academic perspective. They're trying to understand like human behavior to, for example, abuse animals. As we know, like Indonesia kind of got that reputation to have a lot of exposure to make an online abuse content in social media. It's quite a huge, and we're trying to lower that down. So hopefully with that help, we can engage more with kids, educating kids to be have a more like compassionate mind, and focus on more like solution based rather than like building like more internal community. That's for me.
Wow, thank you so much. I think the fact that there are research that's being done to really understand the structural and systemic problems, like human psychology of animal abusers, that I think in itself is an indicator of how much the some people in that country are aware of the issue and trying to solve the issue at the root. So I think that is a really good, like, great progress. And yeah, I'm also hopeful for that as well. Okay, maybe two more coordinators if you want to share your thoughts. Han.
Yes, so I feel like what I have to say follows naturally from what Poppy just said and what everyone else just said, because I see a lot of common themes in the lessons that we've taken away from our work. So also in Vietnam, since consumer awareness is increasing, especially when it comes to health benefits of moving away from animal products, and also since we've seen a lot of progress at the organizational and industry level, I would really hope to see more investment in grassroots work and see the conversation really turn to the issue of justice. And recently I've been really excited to see some really powerful grassroots community gatherings organically popping up in response to world events. In Vietnam, we are limited in terms of mass political action, but people have been incredibly creative with community gatherings, with teach-ins, movie screenings, art activities that at the same time raise awareness of political issues and so on. And people are informing themselves and educating each other. It's really ambitious, but I also hope to at least lay some groundwork for building a more intersectional space in Vietnam, which I really see a need for, especially as I have not seen much reaching out across movements at all. And the reason specific to Vietnam is that we see infighting pretty much in every movement, even the more established ones like the gender equality or the LGBT rights movements. And I firmly believe the way forward is rooted in building more interpersonal connections. As people, I feel, are more united by close friendship rather than ideological similarity. And I was also extremely inspired by Haru's presentation yesterday to fully make use of my own identities and my own background in order to connect with the people in the spaces that I am allowed entry into and I have some voice in. So I'm really hopeful for next year and what we can achieve as a team, especially in terms of intersectional justice.
Yeah, thank you, Han, for sharing that. I liked your reflection on Han's presentations from yesterday and how that also can be used in your own advocacy as well. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, would anyone like to share maybe a quick response to this question before we move on to the cross-cultural discussion? So we're kind of running out of time for this. Sneha, yes, let's go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Kaho. I'll keep it brief. So, like Han said, that I've resonate with all of you that you've said some parts of that's so connected to what's happening in India as well. And while I tread carefully with being hopeful, I definitely do see a light that's really a guiding light that has been helping us all to really move and keep consistently moving forward with animal justice movement. So the few projects that I would really like to mention that I'm really hopeful for is, of course, the reroute program grantees that are there that are working. One is the community kitchen that's been happening in Tamil Nadu, and the other is the silent slaughter documentary that's been worked on. I'm really, really hopeful for these these projects to be like fulfilled and come to fruition, because I think they are a game changer within the movement. This is something that not a lot of us was able to pull off. But finally, because of this platform, we could do that. And I think it's really going to shift the conversation from just about being a lifestyle or a personal choice or a fad to really talking about justice and really talking about the intersections on how we can execute those intersections in our advocacy. Like I understand that we have a lot of theory to talk about it. We have been talking about it a lot as well, but when it comes to really planning it on the ground, making sure that your those intersections are meeting within the work of your project, that's really important. And I think these two projects are doing just that. And I'm also really hopeful for the literature that's being developed, with the help of Animal Alliance Asia as well. That's an anti-oppression and anti-speciesism a literature that we are developing for public awareness. So it's going to be a sort of a booklet or a leaflet for to be distributed within public. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Elia and Mimi for being there with every step of the way with me and just helping me and guiding me with developing this. So they played a huge part in making this happen as well. And I also just want to quickly mention that beyond this, my scope of work, there are so many other organizations and individuals who are doing such great work that may not be always, be in the forefront of media houses, that may not be always in the forefront of, communication or social media or advertisements. But they are really doing the, hard work that goes on into it. And one of such groups are Indoor Animal Liberation Group, which is co-founded by Durga, who's also the co-director of the documentary that's been working on. So they have been really working on to shifting that narrative of, just talking about animal rights from a single issue point of view to moving towards more wholesome, holistic perspective of justice. So I think that's a game changer yet again. And I think we have so much to learn from them, even though they're a new group and even though they're very handful and compared to the whole mass of, veganism within the Indian context. I think their efforts have been really reflecting on how we need to approach intersectionality and how we really need to work towards that. So they have been doing a lot of on ground work. They've been going to slaughterhouses. They've been going to dairy farms. They're talking to these people who are working there. They're having this kind of communication. They're coming out on the streets in solidarity with the LGBTQ community. So even though they get backlash from the mainstream movement, there have been individuals, organizations who have really given them a slack for doing this, and yet they did not back out. So I really want to commend them, because it's not easy given the political scenario that's happening in India right now. It's not easy to speak up on any of these issues from a perspective that talks about justice and does not by default incline towards a specific religious or spiritual beliefs, right? So I think that's the important work that's been going on. Also, organizations like Samayu, HSI, Animal Law Center by Nalsar University, and Center for Research on Animal Rights, they also play a really vital role in furthering the animal welfare through research and policy change, because these are the people who have been working on various farm animal issues, wildlife conservation. There's a lot of issue going on with the Wildlife Protection Act within India, specifically for elephants, that's putting them in danger. They are working on all these issues and making sure that we don't regress from the progress that we have made throughout since the time we have attained independence. And that's the sort of work that when I see that's what I feel really hopeful for. Even though it's not something that we talk about a lot in the mainstream movement, I think which we should, because these policies really hold a lot of weightage when it comes to advocacy. It's going to help us in our advocacy as well. And lastly, I just want to mention all the farm animal sanctuaries that are here, that are running despite of so many issues and so many obstacles that they face within, just the funding issue, or within just the whole operational bit as well, because it is difficult to run a shelter regardless, but it's very difficult to run a shelter for farmed animals because we don't have any provisions, we don't have any laws around it. So all the efforts that do go into it are by the individuals who are passionate to help these animals, rescue these animals, and give them a safe haven. So I'm just really hopeful for these, because of these people, that the movement that is going forward, even if it's slow, sometimes it can even like pause and halt, and that's in that phase it definitely keeps moving forward. And as I said, while I trade carefully with hope, this definitely gives me a lot of inspiration that we will keep moving forward regardless of who is the mainstream, who's the loudest. This work is going to keep going on. So yeah, I'm really glad for that. So thank you.
Wow, there are so many amazing work that's being done in India. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that as well. And I'm also very excited for the reroute grantees. And I just want to also give you a shout out, Sneha, because you've done such amazing work with the re-grantees and coordinating with them, helping them through the application process. So thank you so much for your work as well. Okay, so now we move on into the country-specific discussion breakout rooms. I would encourage everybody to join the room, and we've set up the room for the countries that we have the country coordinators in. And if you are not from those countries, we have a room says others. So please join that room, and we can have. I hope everybody's back now. So I would like to ask maybe two people to share what they've discussed. If there's anything you would like to share, please raise your digital hand, please. Anyone? can't see everyone's. Oh, Elia, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just keep it quick. Alchemish and I were in the room and we just explored one question, which was how can we switch to more economical food systems? And we've been discussing how floods and climate change have actually ruined crops and people's lives. And if there is a way that we can maybe work together on creating an alternative way to create sustainable food systems. So we will keep exploring that question as well later on. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing that discussion. That sounds like a very important work to explore too. So yeah, I hope you two continue that discussion afterwards. Anyone else would like to share what they've discussed in their room? Okay, Steph, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Kaho. We actually didn't have enough time. We were just trying to introduce ourselves, getting to know each other, but there was one important issue that was raised, and that so the question we asked is how do we advocate for animals and what part of it do we want to improve? And one issue that was raised is that we want to improve how we fundraise. And I think this is something that we can all relate to. It is so difficult to raise funds for the things that we want to do for the animals. And I'm thinking that this is definitely one of the gaps that we can actually address also in the future. Yes, so that's before we can even go into solutions, the breakout room was dissolved. So I'm hoping that maybe in the future, the attendees of this conference can get together amongst themselves and talk about how we can improve fundraising, especially in our different settings, particularly in the Philippines as well.